Teacher gasps in fear as he watches the greater demon use his imaginary hand and his power of skill taker to take away Fran's magical skills. At this point, Teacher feels there is no way they can survive the encounter. But as the greater demon jumps at Fran to kill her, he tells her he won't kill her straightforwardly. Instead, he will torture her to death for the stress she has caused him. He jumps at her, but she dodges him and crawls towards his back. She jumps at him and stabs his back. She forges at him, and she keeps hitting his sword. The greater demon wonders if his skill taker power didn't work, and he wonders what's going on. Teacher is also feeling the same dilemma. He asks Fran if she can still use her sword skills, and she replies affirmatively. He thinks of what could have happened and figures that the sword skills Fran is using belong to him. So practically, Fran has no sword skills. The skill she is using is a borrowed skill that she got from Teacher, and there is no way the greater demon can take a borrowed skill. With that being established, Fran keeps using all her powers to fight back. She refuses to give up, and the greater demon feels overwhelmed. The dungeon master asks the greater demon if he is tired. The dungeon master rightfully assumes that Fran is strong. He reassures the greater demon that he will defeat Fran, and he calls out strongest elite goblins. About 4 master goblins come out with his magical powers. He orders the goblins to defeat Fran and every other invader and adventurer outside, then they will enter the city and destroy Alessa. As Fran hears that they plan to destroy the city, she tries to process the information, but she hasn't gotten herself fully before the goblins descend on her. Luckily, the greater demon, who is embarrassed that the dungeon master counts him so incompetent that he brought some goblins to help him with his job, angrily uses magic to send the goblins back. The dungeon master looks in awe as all his goblins scatter in the air. The greater demon tells the dungeon master that he used a dark magic called the Black Bomb, and if the dungeon master disturbs his fight again, he will kill the dungeon master himself. He faces Fran. He tells her he's tired of the confrontation and that she is not fit for him. He says it isn't fun for him to tackle a person and says he will instead destroy the whole village, so it's about time he kills Fran and gets moving. He attempts to use very great skills, a power with so much aura that Teacher himself knows what's coming at them. Won't be easy. The greater demon calls the power the Darkness Volticer, and it's like a volcano. He throws it right at Fran and the ground shakes. Outside the war room, Donadrand and the other adventurers feel the strength of that magic. They see how it sounds and the ground shakes. They wonder if Fran is still alive, and they know quite well that if Fran is still alive, it is no doubt a miracle. Donadrand attempts to use one of his dark magic, which he calls the Wild Impulse, to cut off the door, but it doesn't work. They figure out that no matter how hard they try, the door can only be opened from the inside. Inside the room, the greater demon tells Fran that she was lucky to dodge that attack, and she won't get so lucky the next time. At this point, Teacher tells Fran that there is no way she can survive, and she can't defeat the greater demon alone. So he brings out their magic feather for teleportation and tells them to use it. But Fran takes the feather. She agrees that, considering her present strength, it's suicide to keep fighting the greater demon. But she has heard the dungeon master say that if they kill her, they are going to Alessa. She tells them that if they go to Alessa, they will kill everyone in the guild, including Nell, and she doesn't want that, so the Teacher should lend her his powers. Before she finishes her words, the greater demon calls out another of his magic, which he calls the Darkness Spear. He throws the spears at her, and she swings away from them. At this point, Teacher admits that although Fran wants to evolve to be a stronger warrior, beneath that wish is also the wish to protect others. Fran doesn't want anyone to die, and if she leaves the battle, life will be lost. So Teacher tells Fran that he will protect them and ensure that they won't die. So she should keep fighting. The greater demon doesn't reduce his powers. He uses the darkness blaster to throw down all the rocks in the room, and Fran spends all her energy blocking them. Teacher looks at the greater demon's stat again, and he knows that he promised her that they would win. However, he also knows that there is no way in hell they can defeat what's in front of them. He looks at the stat, and he sees that the greater demon has a high mana, so he can use several magic repeatedly without getting weak. He figures they can't defeat the greater demon with the sword, and tries to see if the greater demon has any weakness that could kill him. The greater demon uses Black Bomb, and he starts attacking indiscriminately, but Teacher figures he is avoiding the dungeon master. They know that during the battle, the greater demon and the dungeon master do not really like each other, so teacher wonders why the greater demon is protecting the dungeon master. Having come to a realization that there is something about the dungeon master that is making the greater demon protect him, he tells Fran to attack the dungeon master. As Fran throws her fire arrow at the dungeon master, the greater demon goes to protect the dungeon master. They remember the words of Donadrond, which he said before they entered the dungeon. Donadron had told them that if the dungeon master is killed, the dungeon will close by itself, and every goblin or demon inside of it will die. Since it was the dungeon master who summoned the greater demon, then the greater demon will die when the dungeon master dies. They decide to use their magic to attack the dungeon master. As they attack with their fire arrow and 4 javelin, the greater demon uses all his powers to protect the dungeon master. Teacher realizes that when the greater demon is using his protection, he couldn't attack them. He formulates a way that they could win the battle. He knows that if they keep looking for the dungeon master, the greater demon will keep protecting him, so they have to go for the greater demon. He figures that the greater demon has exhausted some of his energy, so he asks Fran to stop the attack. The dungeon master uses his magic perception to recharge his mana. During this period, teacher tells Fran that they will set the greater demon up. He tells her to use the wind to throw the sword at the greater demon and distract him while she attacks. As she throws the sword, the greater demon wonders why she is throwing her sword away. He sees teacher flying towards him. He figures out what Fran is trying to do and says he will build his defense in such a way that Fran won't be able to attack him. He builds his defense, but teacher dodges through it. Teacher is planning to attack the crystal in the greater demon's heart, and he focuses on what he wants. However, he is about to hit the chest. The greater demon holds the sword. He knows the greater demon has great mana, but he also activates his mana to break through the greater demon's hands. The greater demon is shocked. He wonders what type of sword it is and his shock grows bigger. And he hears teacher speak. Teacher calls him a foolish demon and tells him he will revenge for every piece of pain Fran has felt. The greater demon sees as teacher activates his ultimate mood and skill he calls the telepult. He uses this skill to cut the crystal in the demon heart, and the demon dies. Unfortunately, teacher has also lost a lot of mana. He breaks as a result, and Fran runs to meet him. Fran picks the pieces up of his body as she cries. She wonders if that will be the end of her relationship with teacher. And while she cries, teacher activates himself. Teacher says the greater demon's crystal is sweet. He tells Fran never to assume he is dead again, as he can renew his strength with the use of crystals. Fran calls him a dummy. She asks him not to scare her in such a way again, and she cries to him. As they catch up happily, the dungeon master feels he won't lose. He goes to the crystal and attempts to use the power of the goddess to call another demon. But before he does that, Fran uses the greater demon's sword to break his goddess stick. The dungeon master asks Fran if he wants to kill him, and tells Fran not to kill him. He tells her that even if she does kill him, he will keep resurrecting. He brings out his scapegoat wristband and wears it. He tells her that as long as he has the band, he can't die. Fran then cuts off his hands. She tells him the problem has been solved. She gives a hand to teacher who keeps it. She attempts to kill the dungeon master, but teacher stops her. They see the dungeon core changing color and acknowledges the dungeon master is dead. The dungeon crumbles and everywhere returns to normal. Fran comes out to meet Donadron. Before coming out, they hide the greater demon's sword. As the other adventurers see her, they ask her if she indeed killed a level B monster. While everyone approaches her with several questions, Donadron pats her head. He encourages her to kill such a great monster, but he uses his intimidation skills to warn her not to do so again. He reminds her of the instruction that they should not do anything alone and tells her the 10 rules of being an adventurer. While she suffers the punishment for her acts, teacher is interested in their levels and powers. Teacher finds out she is now at level 25, contrary to the level she was when she entered the dungeon. And he has also leveled up to level 8. He asks her what she wants so he can buy it for her and which skills she wants to level up. He speaks to her twice, but she doesn't reply. So when she later replies, she tells him that while she is serving punishment, he is thinking about levels. He changes his word and says he is asking her about the curry he promised her. They buy several master skills, including the skill taker skills, which she saw the greater demon using. They return to the guild where she meets the guild leader. He first gets angry at her for going into such a dungeon without taking others along, and tells her that if she couldn't kill the demon, she would have kept the whole city at risk. But since she killed it, he will excuse her. He appreciates her for bringing the body of the greater demon back to the guild, but tells her that demons of such level have a crystal on their heart. He says that crystals are so powerful that they can cause countries war, and they will need to collect the crystal. If not, the elders will revolt. She tells him the crystal broke during the fight. He believes and tells her since the elders aren't asking, he will trust her words and believe she means no harm. As he says this, a fearful individual breaks into the office. The person tells Fran that she is lying and she can't lie to him. Fran and teacher wonder who this person is as the episode ends.